Hello everyone, welcome back, and it's time for us to have our bee story for today. And the story I've chosen for today is called Nature's Tiny Miracle Bee. And if you look in the centre of the flower, you can see, if I open it up, there is a special shape in the front of my book. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. Can anyone remember the name of that six-sided shape? That's right, it's called a hexagon. So in the middle of the flower there's a hexagon, and as we go through the book, the hexagon gets smaller and smaller and smaller. All the way through the book it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So I'm going to read this book today, Nature's Tiny Miracle Bee. B-E, bee. And there's all these little hexagons, look. Can you see them here? And they're going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as we read through the book. And then the bee is right in the centre there. Right, let's see what this story is about today. Are we ready? Are we sitting nicely? And we'll start with our listening hands. So it's listening time, it's listening time. Shh. Let me see you sitting nicely, ready for my story. I can see the bee books behind me through my hexagon. So I can just see, if I move it around, look, you can see the bees coming through in the picture. Right, dawn is breaking. It's a brand new day. And in the meadow, poppies sway. That's the name of these red flowers, poppies. A bee appears, striped black and gold. I wonder what of nature is about to unfold. And there's the bee inside the hexagon. In the treetops, birds start to sing. The little bee beats her wings, and as she travels here and there, a gentle thrumming fills the air, because when the bees wave their wings very, very fast, that's what makes the buzz noise when bees fly. Back and forth, toing and froing, the bee knows exactly where she's going. Visiting flowers of every hue, she has a very special job to do. And we've been learning about that this week, haven't we? The jobs of bees and pollinating all the flowers. I know some of you have done some really lovely work for me on that this week. Gathering nectar as she goes from every foxglove, every rose. That's two different types of flowers. These long, thin flowers here, they are called foxgloves. And in fact, I have some outside in my garden. I can see them out of my window growing. And then the other flowers here are roses. Dusty with pollen, the little bee buzzes, buzzes, busily. So she's gone from this flower, or probably from this flower actually, and the pollen has been transferred to this flower, and then it has been transferred to this flower. So she takes the pollen from one flower to the next and she pollinates them as she goes along. And we're going to do a little experiment with that this week with cheesy puffs to show you how that works. Bee travels on from bloom to bloom, drawn in by their sweet perfume. Harvesting flowers one by one, her compass is the midday sun. That means the midday sun shows her the direction to go in, because that's what a compass does. Among the orchard's apple trees, blossom quivers in the breeze, carrying pollen from place to place. Bee always leaves a tiny trace. So here's the pollen again, look. You can see as she moves around from the blossom and then she moves to a different tree. The trace of pollen goes with her, and there she is, look, in the hexagon on her way to some more flowers and trees. Flowers as far as the eye can see. Too many flowers for just one bee. All of a sudden, Bee is gone. She has a message to pass on. There she is, look, hiding in the hexagon. I wonder what message she has to pass on. Oh, wow, look at all these bees here. Back at the hive, Bee spreads the news. There's work to be done. No time to lose. So she flew back to the hive where all the other bees were in the hive, and she sends them a message and she tells them the direction to go in to find more pollen in the flowers. Listen for their gentle humming. The word is out. The bees are coming. And bees do a special type of dance. They dance around like a number 8. And as they dance around, that message that they tell the other bees, the direction of the pollen and the flowers that they can find. So that's the way that they can tell each other, they can communicate with each other. Buzzing over the dense hedgerows, past the pond where the wild thyme grows. Through the orchard's sweet-smelling scent, the bees travel on with calm intent. So here they all go, look. Now they are following the other bee. Can you see there's lots more little hexagons that have appeared, and they are following the bee who is showing them the way to go and find the nectar in the flowers. And look at the little frog is looking up, and the geese are looking up and seeing the bees flying off to see what they can find. Wow, even more are coming now, look. Look at all these hexagons here with all the little bees. If I put it close, can you see all the bees in the hexagons? As lilies grow orange in the sun, the bees must finish what they have begun, stopping at every flower they find, leaving the gift of pollen behind. The bees pass over a woodland stream. Droplets sparkle and pebbles gleam. Water trickles and bubbles and weaves. A weeping willow trails down its leaves. This tree here is called a weeping willow, and all the leaves and the branches hang down, and they often grow by the water. So all the bees are going past the willow tree. And look at them now. Loads and loads of bees in the hexagons here, and flying and following the bee over here as well. And when there's a huge group of bees like that all together, we call it a swarm of bees. So the swarm of bees is following the bee there. As the bee flies on through buds and burrs, a tiny miracle occurs. Wow, look at all those beautiful meadow flowers. For every plant and flower you see was given life by one small bee. And there's all those beautiful flowers right at the end. So the bee travels from one flower to the next, taking pollen from one flower, giving it to the next one, moving on to the next one, which helps the flowers then make seeds that can then be dispersed, and then they grow into more flowers. So it's the bees who are the really clever ones and who are give us all these beautiful flowers in the countryside and all in our gardens. And an experiment that we are going to do is going to be with cutting out some flowers, and we're going to get some cheesy puffs, those little cheesy puff crisps, and we're going to see if we can get the cheesy puff powder on our hands, and then we're going to move it from one picture of a flower to another one, and we'll be able to see just how the pollen is transferred, is moved from one flower to the next flower by the bees. So I hope you enjoyed that story, because I think that's one of my favourite stories about bees this week. I love the shapes on it, and I love the story, and I really love those beautiful flowers that the bees have helped us have in our gardens and our countryside. So we are very, very lucky to have the bees, and it's our job to look after the bees, to make sure there are plenty of flowers in our gardens and our countryside, so they can make us even more. So a lovely story today, so I hope you enjoyed that one, and I will be back later today to read you some more stories. Take care, bye bye, and don't forget, busy bees, be busy.